everyone. We're going to be doing a review today of the Edea spinners. So here we have the original spinner from Edea, and then this one is called the e-spinner. It's the newer upgraded version for a little bit more advanced skaters working on higher level spins and maybe higher level jumps off of the spinner. So what we can see here with the beginner spinner is that the rocker is actually quite more flat here. We don't have a lot of kind of edge to work with here. So this one is really good for more balance. The skaters can step on it feeling more comfortable, almost like you're standing on the floor, and then just starting to work on your balance point, spinning on a little bit more flat of a rocker initially. You can also jump off of this spinner too. It's not bad to jump off of these kind of spinners without the band, but it's more that you're not going to be able to rock to the top of the rocker as nicely as, for example, on the e-spinner. So in my opinion, I would say the basic one is for a little bit more beginners working on single jumps or basic spins, getting started, and then you can slowly progress to the e-spinner. So let's talk about the e-spinner a little bit here. What we have are a couple new features. We have a wider surface that the foot can stand on to spin. We have this brand new band that we can use, so the yellow one being a little bit more for the single jumps, and then we have a red band that you can replace that you can use for more double and triple jumps. And the difference is really it just has a little bit more of that gripping surface, so when you put more pressure, you're not going to slide as easy. So what else is new about the e-spinner? We have the rocker. So you can see the difference between the two spinners here, how the rocker is a little bit more pronounced on the e-spinner. And when the rocker is a little more pronounced, you can find your spinning spot a little bit more comfortably for the advanced spins. Gives you a little bit better balance when you're trying to get into the speed of the spin. And then we also have the edge control. So if you're working on getting more of the feeling of the edge, we have a little bit more of that kind of dipping down on both sides to feel your edges a little bit. So yeah, that's basically the difference here. You can work on singles as well as doubles and triple jumps off of this e-spinner for getting your jumps to improve, which I will show you in the demos later. And then also really fantastic double use for working on your spins. So like I said, again, love both of these spinners, really great. I use these ones for our beginner basic spinning curriculum at FLEXAFIT, and then the more advanced e-spinner we start to introduce a little bit more when we get into the advanced jumps and spins with our FLEXAFIT classes for both jumping and spinning. Okay, so we're going to work on our beginner spins today with the basic spinner. I have the lollipop spinner here today. So what I'd like to do is show you some basic exercise that you can practice on this original spinner, the one that has a little bit more of that flat rocker. So we are looking at more of the beginner kind of positioning. So let's place this down on the floor, and we're going to start with the backspin. I like to start introducing spins on the spinner with the backspin positioning to kind of get a feel of the areas that we need to work on to get our position first, and then we put ourselves on the spinner. So the first thing I'd like to do is standing, just kind of let the spinner be for a second. We're going to take our backspin position. So if you spin on your right foot, you're going to stand on your right foot over your hip this way, and then if you spin the other way, we'll take that position on the left foot. So I'll be demonstrating mostly on my spinning side, so on the right foot for the backspin. So what I'd like to start with is just a basic balance exercise where we lift up into the H position and then cross in front and then down into the spin. So again, up into a star, H, cross, and down. So now, once you get comfortable balancing on the floor, this is when you can start to kind of get yourself organized on the spinner. So I'm going to step on the spinner so that I can feel that movement of the foot back and forth a little bit here. And so you should be able to feel just kind of like rotating a little bit, keeping your foot on the floor, feeling where the balance is, a little bit rocking to the front as you rotate, rock to the back as you rotate. Just feel where that sweet spot would be for you if you were to get up into the spin. So now what I'd like to do is we're going to introduce just balancing on the spinner and doing the same positions that we just did on the floor. So you can see how with the basic spinner here, I feel more balanced when I'm standing on it because there's not a huge rocker to work with. So we're not rocking back and forth to balance this way. We're just keeping our core really strong, lifting up, trying to balance on the spinner. Woo, yeah, good. And then crossing in and pressing down. So again, lifting up, H, cross, and down. So now when you get comfortable with just the balance, this is when we can start to move our positioning. So what I like to do is start with some quarter turns. So when we do the quarter turns, we're learning how to lift in this hip, keep our whole skating side over top, and then just hitting that H position to the quarter, 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 and quarter, and then returning back to center. So you can really feel how your foot is working, where that blade positioning needs to be, basically kind of like if you were on a blade on the spinner. And then as you get comfortable with the quarters, you can start to move into a half turn. So if we get into the half turn, I turn away half a turn, H position, I'm keeping my open position for balance, H position, rotate, H position, rotate. And so now you should feel a little bit more comfortable being on that rocker on the basic spinner. And then we can add a full turn to center. So I can really feel when I do this on this beginner kind of spinner with the flatter rocker, it is so much easier to balance as I'm spinning because it doesn't pull me forward too much. So we'll see that when we get into the more e-spinner type exercise with these same drills. It's going to feel a little bit different initially, but as you get used to it, you're going to be able to spin a lot faster and longer on the e-spinner. With the basic one, you can start to learn all your positioning and then moving up to the advanced spinner a little bit more. So again, full turn, and then we can slowly start to pull in and then coming back out. And again, up, full turn, and then find your balance, pulling back in. It will still like rock you back a little bit, and you know, I don't practice my own spins all the time, so it might be a little bit rocky for me in the beginning too as I'm doing the demonstrations, but the idea is to show you what it looks like so you can practice and then do the repetitions on your own. So now that we did a little bit on the backspin positioning, I'd like to show you a little bit more on learning to do a sit spin position, and then we'll take it over to the e-spinner for camel spin and a little bit more on the pull and squeeze for more advanced spins. So here, now we will switch feet, and we're going to practice balancing in the sit position and just bringing the foot around. So again, we're not even spinning yet. We're just trying to find that balance on the spinner so I can feel my toes really working here. And I go around and sit into it. And you'll see it starts to want to turn you because it's on a nice surface here to slide. So what you'll feel is a little bit of a turn, but initially you just want to feel the snap around and then getting into a nice kind of a little higher upright sit spin to start. When you start on the spinner, you're most likely not going to be able to go all the way down and up into the sit spin just because the balance point is quite significantly shifting. So you want to start your sit spin just learning how to squat down a little bit, and then inch by inch you can start to get lower. So if we take the same progressions as we did on the backspin, we could start doing it a little bit by tapping down on the quarters. So here I take my sit position, bending into the knee here as I enter, and then I come around and tap. Reach back, come around, tap. Reach back, around, quarter, and I'm keeping this knee bent the whole time. From there, I want you to try and go around, tap, to half, around, tap, to half, oops, and half, good, and around, quarter, tap, and half. So what I'm trying to do is feel the snap in and then stop myself from falling over. So initially when you learn on the spinner, if you just go right away and try to spin, most likely sometimes the spinner will slide from underneath you and then you can have a pretty hard fall sometimes. So just be careful when you're on a slippery surface like this. It's always better to go slower through progressions than to whip into it and fall hard on your wrist or your butt. So again, here, as I come around, then I can get into my position, make it back to a full turn, and try again, finding the balance and stop. Finding the balance and stop. And you can see how I got more and more comfortable as I was going into the spin on each repetition. Okay, so let's switch over to our E-spinner now, and we will do the same exercises with a little bit more advanced feel to it, and then we'll also cover the camel spin in our next segment. Okay, so we are going to take a look at now the E-spinner, and we are working on a little bit more advanced movements to elite movements on the spinner. So what we're going to take a look at is the same backspin. I'm going to show you a little bit on the camel spin, and then I'd like to go through a quick, simple, my favorite jump exercise on the spinners are for loop, flip, and lutz. I do them on all the jumps, but for some reason, loop, flip, and lutz, just that pivoting action is just so nice on the spinner, and every single jump class, I teach it with the spinner to start to get the feel of it, and then we maybe take it off the spinner and go back. So it's a really good tool to use for your jumps, especially with this nice band at the top. I love that feature. It really helps to feel the grip more once you hit that toe pick to lift off of your foot, and honestly, it helps so many slips happening. When I didn't have this little band initially, it would always slide depending on how you maybe tilt a little bit. So really great addition to the spinner having this little band here. Okay, so let's take it into our first exercise. What we're gonna do is you can either, well, we'll see if I can take this off actually, because it is probably not so great to have that on for spinning. So I'm just gonna put the band over here for a second, and we're just gonna use it for spinning first, and then I'll place the band back for our jumps. So really easy to take off and put back on. It's a really cool little feature there for sure. Okay, so again, finding that sweet spot. So now when you step on this E-spinner, you're really gonna notice, I like to try to really find that sweet spot first before I move anywhere. So here, if I just stand on it, I can feel my foot working. You can even use this as a balance exercise. I can go to the inside edge, I can feel my outside edge, I can rock forward, I can rock back. It's quite a big difference in this spinner, and it's quite a bit faster. So if I turn around, I'm really, really quickly turning around myself. So I would say definitely more advanced for the kind of intermediate to pro level of the spinner and jumping. So here again, if we start with our basics, because if you've graduated from the other spinner and you're trying a little bit of this harder version, what I'd like to start is like just going through the same quarter exercises. And on this one, I barely feel like I need to do much of a hip twist. It just turns right away. So that just shows you that it's not a lot of work that you need to put into starting rotation. You just have to be really balanced over your skating side. Again, full turn and pressing up into the rotation from there. And you can see how sometimes the floor is a little bit slippery here, so I have to be careful how hard I pull in, because if you pull in too hard and you rock back a little bit, you will slide quite a bit under. So if you have a good surface or a little mat or something with the anti-slip kind of feel, I would suggest using that if you're working on higher level spins going faster. So here again, when I get up into my position, I can feel like here now, you really have to know like where's your balance point to the front of the foot. If you feel like it goes over to the inside, you're gonna fall out of it. So now you're getting challenged a little bit more to really understand where that position should be over your foot, where the same kind of concepts will apply to the on ice. So really great tool to use off ice, up, and then finding that balance. Up, full turn. Once you feel you've done enough of these where you're balanced, you can kind of pull right in and get up into the rotation a little bit easier to squeeze in and then coming out. what I teach usually for the spinner is to kind of hop off of it for the exit for the backspin. So if I go from here, I like to just jump off and exit the spin this way so that you feel like you're actually doing the same movement pattern. So now if we go into the camel positioning, so from here again, we switch to the other side. I like to do the same kind of thing we just did for the sit spin on the beginner one, and then we move into lifting the free leg up to a quarter and then back down. And then press back your free leg. You're going to press up to the quarter and back down. You really will have to practice. And like I said, I'm not a fully expert spinner on the spinner myself, but when I'm teaching it, I can explain it to the point where you're really focusing on not getting too far forward, but also not getting to the heel. So when you're spinning that camel spin, you have to find that middle ground on the camel. So if you kind of do it a little bit faster where you're lifting, you can start to feel the flow a little bit better than when it's slower. So this is one of those more advanced spins when you learn it on this e-spinner that you have to be ready to give it a little bit more of a push and speed going up into your position. So here I try working on keeping my back down, pressing up and around until I feel comfortable. And then from there, you can push up and hit that position a lot stronger into it. So what I'll do is I'll attach some videos of some of my students doing the spinner exercise so you can really see how they lift up from pulling back into the hip and lifting through the upper body, pressing that leg up into that nice little arch so that you're exactly balanced on both sides. Okay, so now let's put back our band. So I'm gonna place it, there's these little hooks here that they clip into, and then you just gotta use a little force to pull it over and then clip it into the other side. And now we're back to our spinner having the band. So this one is for singles, but you can also use it for other jumps up to the doubles. I just find the red one has a little bit more of a grippy surface. So if you're on the floor like this, I would probably switch it to the red one if you're gonna work on double and up. But if we're doing walkthroughs, the yellow band is really perfect. So I'm gonna show you loop jump today. And then if you love what we do, you can come and join some of our classes to get more experience with the spinners and also for the off-ice jumps. So I'm gonna start in this loop position here as if I'm gliding back. And then what I wanna do is I wanna just pivot to the half turn, lift up, and then cross my foot in. So again, here I'm with my back arm a little higher, I'm pivoting through and then cross in. So the idea is that if I show you from the back here, as I pivot through, I can actually feel my outside edge here and then lift and lock. And you can see how this knee stays over top of this foot. Okay, so when I jump, if I'm gonna release up towards you and jump off the spinner, I'm gonna have a good forward projection. So maybe I'll show you from the side here so you can see that projection as I'm lifting. So again, I press, make sure I'm comfortable. You can kind of feel that band a little bit underneath you where the toe pick is. So I start, pivot, lift off the toe, and coming out. So if I jump towards you or jump away, maybe I'll face this way, you'll see when I hit, it's actually super comfortable. You don't slide anywhere. So you're here, pivot, up, and lock over. It also just adds that confidence when you're trying to figure out your jumps on the spinner. You don't have to worry that you're gonna slide anywhere. Once you hit the rocker and the top of the toe, you're really gonna be safer with that band there because you can grip the band and feel that nice toe pick action getting right up to the top of the toe, similar to what you would on the ice. So I hope you enjoyed some of my tutorials on the beginner spins, a little bit more advanced, and then taking it to a more elite level where we're jumping off of the spinner. If you'd like to see more stuff with the spinner at FLEXAFIT, we have an amazing curriculum that we are building out starting in March of 2023. We're going to have a fundamentals course for beginner spins with the spinner and jumps and fitness and all the things that surround skaters learning the basics. So we will be using the fundamental spinner first for that class. And then we graduate to advanced and elite level using the e-spinner for our classes, for our off-ice jumps and our spinner classes, and all of the things that we need to do to learn our balance exercises. We use also the spinner to help with that edge control. Really great tool for a lot of different uses in off-ice training. So follow along, follow me on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, FLEXAFIT by Signe Ronka, and I hope to see you all there.